Hello everyone. In this lecture, we'll be talking about the greatest English playwright of all times, William Shakespeare. He is regarded as the greatest literature of all times, not only uh, in English literature but probably in all world literature. Only writers like Dante, Cervantes, and Homer have been compared with the genius of William Shakespeare. So today we'll see why William Shakespeare is such an important literary figure for all of us. What he did in the field of literature and what are the qualities that make his literature, that make his contribution to English literature of such an enduring value. We'll also look at some of the biographical details of Shakespeare's life, but not much, only a passing reference. We'll look at the stages which famous critics have divided his career into. We'll also look at uh, the contemporary relevance and contemporary criticism of William Shakespeare. So, this lecture is going to be important. I request you all to please watch the full video and like, comment, and subscribe. This is a request which I have been making and I'll make in this video also. This is important because it will encourage me to create more such videos for you in future. Now moving on with our topic for today, William Shakespeare. We'll first see as to what was the time frame in which William Shakespeare lived. What was the period in which William Shakespeare lived? He was an Elizabethan dramatist. He also wrote during the time of King James. He was born in the year 1564 and he died in the year 1616. It means that he lived for 52 years, and that is not a very ripe age, but it was by Elizabethan standards pretty longish. If we see the age of some of his contemporary dramatists, Marlowe, for example, or Robert Greene, uh, or other university wits, we'll find that Shakespeare lived a rather longish life. Now, as regards his education, Shakespeare was not highly educated. He was born in a village that was called Stratford upon Avon. That is why he is called Bard of Avon. He went to the grammar school, but we do not have any evidence which shows that Shakespeare ever went to a college. And that makes him all the more appealing, all the more important as a dramatist, because he had not achieved any formal education as the university wits had. Uh, as regards his personal life, he was married to a lady called Anne Hathaway, who was 8 years older to him. Shakespeare was married when he was 18, and he had children who lived in um, Stratford upon Avon. About 1585, Shakespeare arrived in London. and he took employment under what was known as the theatre then. The theatre was established by Richard Burbage, who was the most popular actor of the day, and he had built that theatre, the theatre it was called, and Shakespeare got employment as an actor in that company. Shakespeare's later on joined another company that was called as Lord Chamberlain's Men. In times of Queen Elizabeth, that drama company was known as Lord Chamberlain's Men. And after Elizabeth's death, when King James I ascended to the throne, that drama company was named as the King's Men. So this is about Shakespeare's employment. Now we must understand that Shakespeare, before being a playwright, he was an actor. His primary occupation was that of an actor, and that is significant because he got a taste of the popular opinion about the plays. He knew what the audience would want to see in a play. This familiarity with popular taste made him write those plays which are so great even today. That he was a successful playwright is beyond doubt. But what interests us today as students of literature is not so much the reason of popularity of his plays in his time, but the popularity of his plays in our day also. Uh, Now, if we look at the dramas that Shakespeare wrote, we would find that he wrote historical plays, he wrote comedy of manners, he wrote um, romances, he wrote tragicomedies, he wrote tragedies, great tragedies. And this variety of plays that he wrote are one of the main reasons of his popularity, because once you see the range that Shakespeare has written, the range of work that Shakespeare has written, it is unimaginable. He has encompassed the entire world into his literature. Probably there are not any types of human beings which have been left untouched by his genius. His literary career has been divided into four stages. The first stage was the stage of early experimentation. Shakespeare wrote plays like Henry the Sixth, Love's Labour's Lost, Two Gentlemen of Verona, Much Ado About Nothing, and these plays mark Shakespeare entering into the world of drama, writing drama, learning the art. And his early plays, though significant, are, as a matter of uh, as far as quality is concerned, they are decidedly inferior to his latter works. And that is why one of the foremost critics, Professor Edward Dowden, has coined the term in the workshop for Shakespeare in his first stage as an early experimenter. The years between 1585 to 1595 are considered his formative early years, and it was in this period that Shakespeare tried his hands at a variety of plays, comedies, histories, even some serious plays. Now, after this, the period from 1595 to 1601 is the time when Shakespeare made a lot of improvement in his style as a dramatist, and it is said that he made fast progress as a dramatist and he attained maturity as a man. His thought matured, and in this period we find Shakespeare writing some of his best comedies. Comedies like A Midsummer Night's Dream, As You Like It, culminating to his most famous and most critically acclaimed comedy, that is The Twelfth Night. He also wrote a tragedy in this period, Julius Caesar, which is part history and obviously part imagination, and that is one of uh, the foremost example of early tragedies that William Shakespeare wrote, apart from Romeo and Juliet. Now, we have to understand that Shakespeare, the tragic vision of Shakespeare also underwent a lot of change. In the third period, we find Shakespeare writing tragedies, and his great tragedies, the four great tragedies as we call them, were all written between the period of 1601 to 1607. And this is the third stage in Shakespeare's career as a dramatist. And Professor Dowden has termed this phase as out of the depths. The phase of 1595 to 1600 has been termed as into the world by Professor Dowden, and he uh, names the third stage as out of the depths. He has called this period as out of the depths because Shakespeare's tragic vision was fully matured by this time. The four great tragedies, Hamlet, Othello, King Lear, and Macbeth, all these tragedies were written during this period. Now, these tragedies are different from a tragedy like Romeo and Juliet, which Shakespeare wrote in the earlier period. So, what is the difference between Romeo and Juliet and plays like Hamlet, for example? It is that Romeo and Juliet was a play which was tragic, but then the reason for the tragedy was not about, it was, the tragedy was not about any particular character. The tragedy was of a situation. That is why Romeo and Juliet is known as a tragedy of situation, while plays like Hamlet, King Lear, Othello, and Macbeth are said to be the tragedy of character. And Shakespeare's tragic vision was that character is destiny. It means that the character of the protagonist was responsible for his tragic downfall. And we find this in each and every tragedy in the third stage that Shakespeare wrote. So, the fourth important phase in Shakespeare's life was termed by Professor Dowden as at the height. It means that Shakespeare achieved the completion of his vision, the full heights of his genius in the last phase. He wrote romances during this period, plays like um, The Winter's Tale, Pericles, The Tempest. These plays are regarded as um, the romances, in which the general tone is that of forgetting and forgiving. Reconciliation is the word that Shakespeare preaches in all these plays. Tempest was the last complete play that William Shakespeare wrote. Obviously, you know that in the entire career, Shakespeare wrote 37 dramas. Somewhere it is 38 also mentioned, but let's not go into the numbers. And he wrote 154 sonnets. So, this is about Shakespeare and his career. Now we come to why is Shakespeare so important? Why is he so universal a writer? What are the values that he preaches in his plays? Then we must know that William Shakespeare writes about human emotions, universal human emotions, that makes him relevant to our own days. Men and women felt the same love as they did in the times of William Shakespeare as they do now. They felt the same emotion of anger, the same emotion of hate, the same emotion of greed, the same emotion of ambition. All these qualities are permanent human qualities. They are human qualities above all. That means humans of every age and of every place feel such emotions. And Shakespeare writes about such emotions. That is why it is easier to relate to Shakespeare. And Shakespeare writes about a lot of uh, a lot of things. He depicts the working of the human psyche. He is a humanist. Even though he writes about ghosts and witches, the focus point, the focus of all his work is on human beings and how do they act. So, this is an important feature of Shakespeare's works, universality and humanism, which make him great. Now, regarding the contemporary relevance of Shakespeare, you know, in the light of theories like post-colonialism, in the light of theories like feminism or subaltern criticism, even Marxism, new historicism. In the light of all these theories, Shakespeare's works have been reinterpreted, reread, and being a major writer of the canon of English literature, Shakespeare has been interpreted in possibly each and every aspect that criticism would allow. And still, he continues to be interpreted in new ways. So, Shakespeare is very important as a writer for a student of literature if one is to appreciate English literature in its true sense. This is all about our lecture. Of course, any lecture on Shakespeare would be incomplete because there are so many aspects involved, there are so many things involved. But I've tried to give a general overview of Shakespeare's life and works. I hope you'd find the lecture useful and important and uh, worthy from the examination point of view also. I once again request you all to please subscribe to my channel, like my videos if you really like them, and comment, share as much as possible so that I may make more such videos. So this is all, friends, for today. Thank you.